what we want kids to understand is you very rarely feel one motion at a time. You could be sad and angry and frustrated and scared. And so we start layering those emotions. So it's not just, let's point to this one. This is the time I'm angry. This is the time I'm scared. It can go a lot more deeper than that. And so for kids to just get a taste of that complexity just when they're young, and then for us to explore that complexity as they get older, I think is really important. We do a lot of mindfulness work. Each of our sessions make sure we have a mindfulness component.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and this is Well, Hello Anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. If you can't tell, I am grinning from ear to ear. I'm so excited. Our guest today, you'll know why. If you've been following this podcast for a little while, you'll know how much of a dog lover I am. And whenever I'm in a school, whether I'm speaking to teachers or to students, if there is a dog on those school premises, I will find it, cuddle it, and hope to have a photo taken so I can share that with everyone. There's something just so very special about the way that dogs connect with people, and especially kids who are feeling anxious and overwhelmed. And I'm so excited because I'm joined today by Sarah Macdonald. Sarah is the founder of Canine Comprehension. So Sarah's business, she brings with her staff trained educators and therapy dogs into schools to support young people with anxiety. And, in this journey with the therapy dogs and the trained educator, the emotional regulation of the children is developed so that they can connect more with their learning, feel more grounded and calm in themselves, and really be able to participate in the classroom in the ways that they would absolutely love to. Sarah is also somebody who knows firsthand what it's like to live and, of course, to lead as the owner of this beautiful business with anxiety. And she actually is really open to talk about her anxiety, which I really appreciate, because the more we can talk about it, the more we normalise how much of a struggle it can be at different stages for people and how different people manage. And of course, that's a part of why she does the work that she does. So Sarah, huge welcome to you to the podcast. I wish I could reach through the screen and cuddle all of the 4 pooches you have with you today.
Oh, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Jodi. Look, I really wanted to speak to you. Your expertise is just a beautiful way of how we relate to our dogs as well. So when I started listening to your podcast, I was like, we have to get talking. You're an incredible advocate for mental health, and our dogs are too. So we often feel like we're just coming along for the ride, and the dogs are doing all the heavy lifting. But I'm more than happy to talk about all things dogs and mental health with you today.
Oh, thank you. Two of my favourite things to talk about. With your beautiful business, Canine Comprehension, how did it all begin? Because it can't be easy. I mean, isn't the age-old adage, don't work with children or pets? I don't know if that's just in acting, but it's obviously something very, very dear to your heart. How did it all begin?
Yeah, it's always a laugh. There's a lot of moving parts when you have to bring dogs into schools, as you can imagine. So we often laugh saying, gosh, this would have been easier if we were just, selling a product that we could just ship off like Amazon, but we don't. Look, the longer story is I was brought up in a cat household. My parents and we love cats. We've got 4 cats as well, and they're wonderful creatures. Yeah. But I got a cancer scare when I was about 13 at school, and skin cancer near my eye, which was fairly scary. And at the same time, a friend's dog had puppies. And so I talked my parents into having a little Jack Russell puppy, because you can't say no to a sick child.
No, you cannot. That was very smart.
So turns out that everything worked out fine, and I'm okay now. Yeah. But that little dog really helped me, even if I wouldn't have called it back then what it was. Yeah. I didn't really know what I was going through. I just know that I needed reassurance by a little guy who was just unquestionably loving and interested in what I had to do. He was my little shadow. So having Hamish in that sort of way. And then if we jump forward, in my adulthood, I did a Masters of Education, became a teacher, love being a teacher, love working with young people and helping them trying to work out where their place is in the world and how that's going to change and how they can have the resilience to change with it. But I got burnt out 5 years in. It took me 5 years to get the degree, and then 5 years in, I was a completely burnt out teacher. I was one of those people who said yes to everything, wanted to be principal as quickly as possible, very ambitious, overachieving, and it came at the expense of my mental health. And I had a bit of a lull and wanted a break from teaching. And so at the same time was when my husband and I bought a house. We bought a dog, our first dog. You know, you get your first house, you get your first dog. Before you unpack anything, we got the dog.
Totally. And then you go, well, maybe that wasn't so smart, but gee, they're lovable.
We had nothing for this dog. So we got this dog. What do we do with this dog? And it was a giant dog. She was a Ridgeback Doberman, so not a small creature. Beautiful piece of art. She was just a lovely dog, but she was very fearful, and she was starting to become aggressive because, as you know, any mammals trying to look after themselves in a fearful situation can either run away, or they can come up fighting, or they can try to freeze. And Minnie's way of defending herself when she felt worried was to run, and then as soon as she got stuck in a corner was to try to attack. I realized that the dream was starting to die. I had this dog that was becoming dangerous, so I started taking her to dog training and started loving the crossover between how we get an animal to think through a problem and to think through a fear, and the education is the answer, the understanding is the answer, and it's exactly the same with students. So I'm sure my parents thought it was like running off to join the circus. I ran off and became a dog trainer and learned everything I could about dog behaviour, especially about aggression and rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And then these little seeds started coming in of ideas of, gosh, I could bring this into schools. I could bring this in and help the students. So it was really Minnie's journey that helped me understand how I could start writing curriculum around this.
Yes.
So thanks, Minnie.
Oh, Minnie. And Minnie's no longer with us, I'm guessing, from the way that you're talking. Yeah. Oh, that's...
Minnie passed away last year. She was an old dog. She retired a few. Canine Comprehension's been going for 10 years. Okay. We had Minnie long before that. So she lived a wonderful life, and she's still remembered in a lot of the stories I tell my staff and a lot of the training. And actually the images I've got on my little desk is one of the pictures up there is Minnie. So we always keep the memory of our dogs.
Yeah, absolutely we do. Those little paw prints on our hearts, they make leave a very, very lasting impression. There's no question. I'm really pleased to know that despite a frightening scare at the age of 13 with skin cancer, goodness me, that it's what really connected you with, fairy friend at the age of 13, and that's, part of that journey. You've no doubt benefited personally from the love and the co-regulation of a beautiful, beautiful dog. Can you tell us a bit more about your journey with anxiety? It's always so interesting to hear, because the thing about anxiety is, whilst we all know what it's like for us, it's often a different experience for different people depending on how it kind of shows up. What's your journey been like?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it sometimes makes me feel like my journey's not worthy when I hear about other people's. I tend to diminish what I've been through. It can't be as bad as someone else. Yeah. And that's what's always good about speaking to my therapist and speaking to close friends who can sort of, remind you that, you've come a good way and you're working through it, and not to diminish those thoughts anyway. Yes. So I was diagnosed very young with depression when I was like 17, and that was in the early 90s. So, but then that seemed to be a bit of a blip, like it was just something that I was going through then, and didn't really think about it again until I started building Canine Comprehension up, and I was working if anyone who's built a business up knows that you work 24/7, and even when you're not working on it, you're thinking on it. So
Yeah.
I became obsessively interested in building this business up, and also working at the Royal College of General Practitioners as an education consultant, which is a wonderful job. So these two wonderful careers that I was
Yeah.
trying to do at the same time. And we don't use the term, breakdown now, but I really did feel broken at that
Yeah.
point. It just got to the stage I couldn't leave the house. I was afraid to open my mail. I couldn't. I couldn't feed. I could eat toast. I could go as far as making toast, but
Yeah.
I wasn't making meals and doing those sort of things. I had a wonderful husband who he was going through a career change. He was becoming a firefighter, so he was away a lot
Yeah.
doing that. And my father, my parents are in Perth, my father ended up coming over and looking after me because I just wasn't functioning. And I remember when I started seeing my therapist saying to her, I don't think it's ever going to get any better. I just don't want it to get worse. And she was talking to me about that's not the case. And it was probably about 4 years later that I realized she was right. But it took that time, it took that time.
Yeah.
And so, like went to my doctor. So I see a therapist, and my GPs are great. And I had to see a psychologist because I'm on medication. And
Yes.
so I'm diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and chronic or persistent depressive disorder. So I generally describe that to people as I'm an uppy-downy type of person.
Humour always helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm an uppy-downy type of person,
Yeah.
and then you just got to go with it, And so, it took a long time to be able to put those building blocks back in, to be able to feel like I was functioning to the beginning, and then from there. It's now I describe myself as an uppy-downy person. I have times, and I'm actually going through one at the moment. I have times where the anxiety is really, really bad. So like this morning was sort of a one-step process. My step was get out of bed.
Yeah.
Next step was have a drink of water.
Yeah.
That sort of step by step. And then other times you feel like it's never going to come around again. It's going to be great forever.
I'm free.
I'm free. Isn't this wonderful? Thank God I'm cured. So that's sort of the swings and roundabouts with me.
Oh, Sarah, honestly, I can empathise with you so much. The feeling of hopelessness, this idea that it's never going to get better than this. How am I going to get through life feeling this way? And the hope that your psychologist was able to, even though you probably weren't really believing, you're probably like, oh, if you say so at the time.
Very much like that.
The anxiety about opening your mail, thank you for sharing that. That is just gold, because once you've done one, then you can think about the next, but it breaks it down, doesn't make the day or even the next 10 minutes feel too overwhelming. Where did that process come from? Was that something your psychologist taught you? Or is it just a survival strategy?
It was probably something that I had heard by my psychologist, and then the interest in this and helping kids and reading through. So it's definitely nothing I've come up with, but it really rang true for me. I used to be a rock climber, and I also was lucky enough to climb Mount Fuji years ago when I was living in Japan. And I remember the last stage of climbing Mount Fuji, because the oxygen is really low. You're trying to get up there before sunrise so you can see the sunrise up there. And it really is that, okay, like I've only got to just get there. It's only another 100 meters and it's taking me forever. It is that one step, breathe, reconsolidate, one step. And I remember those physical times, or with rock climbing, it's the same thing, just like I just have to get to that next move and then I'll work out what the hell I'm doing after that. And so I describe anxiety like that. I'm not standing on a cliff, or I'm not climbing a giant mountain, but my body is reacting in a way that it feels like it is. I'm going through the physiology of that. So then I just have to behave like I am climbing a mountain, and how am I going to get to the top? And so that's always really resonated with me.
Isn't it brilliant that you've been able to draw on something that you where you've had to work really hard and move through like the enormous discomfort. How high is Mount Fuji?
Oh,
don't worry.
Let's Google it later.
Let's Google it later. I'm fascinated by Mount Everest, so I know exactly how high Mount Everest is. And
it's nowhere close to Mount Everest. It can be done in a night, but it does. The air gets thinner.
Yeah, which is high enough for the.
Yeah,
that's it. And what you've just shared, and explained so beautifully, is something that we talk about in acceptance and commitment therapy. This idea that you might be so overwhelmed, but when you can notice what's happening, you know where you're going. You knew where you were going. You were getting to that peak by hook or by crook, step by step by step. And so when we know where we're going, and even though it's a challenge, our hearts are racing. We've got all the even now, like just thinking about it, just my breathing gets affected. But you were able to keep moving forward, and it is such. Not everyone gets there, and part of my hope for this podcast is that anyone listening can recognise, this is a part of us. We can learn to live with it in a way that it doesn't, block our path, and that we can settle the symptoms and we can function and live, and even live a really rich and full life and thrive. But this willingness, it's to get us from A to B when it's 100 steps, 100 metres in low oxygen, or it's, I know I have to open my mail because if I don't, ultimately there'll be more mail and it'll be red in colour, and that will just make my anxiety worse. I've got to get from A to B.
What's in those envelopes.
Totally. I hate those envelopes. I accidentally had one of those yesterday, Sarah. I had a final notice. I'm like, where was the final notice and where was actually the original notice? It just slipped through the paperwork pile in the kitchen. But yeah, this getting from one place to the next and being able to manage and move forward, even if you have to do it and it feels hard, but the destination is worth it. And that's what you've...
I think that's, and I think sometimes reevaluating what the destination is. So it is the one step that should be celebrated, not the top of the mountain.
Yes.
So it really was... I forgot to bring... Here's a funny story. I forgot to bring gloves when I was climbing Mount Fuji. So I've got such a funny image. I took my socks off so I could put them on my hands as gloves. Yeah. So I'm climbing up on a rope with hand puppets, really, with socky little hand puppets. And it really was just like, okay, you pull yourself up one more step and you wait, and you've got to celebrate that moment. Yes. And we talk to the kids about celebrating small wins.
Yes.
And we talk about first, and then we stop using the word small, because they're not small wins to the individual. So the fact that I managed to get out of bed, feed myself, and I'm here today talking to you, it's not the here today talking to you that is the win. It is the got out of bed.
Yes.
It is the grab a drink of water. They're the wins. And then it will get you here, because anything else sometimes tends to look too much.
Yeah, it can just feel too overwhelming. And then like Minnie, with that picture I had in my mind when you talked about Minnie, that Minnie would run when she was fearful, and then if she was sort of caught, she would fight. And that's exactly what happens in us. We want to flee, we'll fight or flee. We'll generally flee if we can, and we should if we're in danger. We'll fight if we have to, but everything that's happening in our brain and our body is as if we were cornered and fearful and frightened and in danger. I'm especially grateful to you knowing that. Is it an anxiety day, or is it an uppy day or a downy day? Is it an anxiety or a depressive sort of feeling that you're experiencing today?
Today for me?
Yes.
It is an anxiety day. So, it is. I can feel it more in my heart rate and in my clenched shoulders and in my body language. And I know I had to go to the shops yesterday, and I just felt like I was making myself smaller, like I was holding my shoulder blades and bringing myself in. And I had to remind myself, when you do that, it diminishes your lung capacity, and it makes things worse. So you have to remember shoulders back.
Yes.
Just take a breath, ground yourself, So I find myself, I catch myself with, in the moments of anxiety and making myself into a little ball, really. So I have to try to, bring that back out. And there were lessons that we would do with Minnie. Like I remember when I first started doing this work, I would go into some of the schools, and because of how loud the school was, Minnie would be really frightened. And she would stand behind me, and I was working with 10 kids, and there were often 10 kids that wouldn't talk about their emotions and, don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
And Minnie wants to come and be a friend. She wants to. It's not that she doesn't want to. And I think a lot of us with anxiety is that is the case. We want to. We want to go out and we want to do the things, but we just can't take that first step. And so we would get the kids to mind map and to put up ideas. How do we make Minnie start to feel safe? And I remember kids like creating tent forts with blankets over the tables, so Minnie could come in and hide under the table, and then they would all lie on their belly and just talk gently to Minnie. And through that time, Minnie would then start to reach out with her paw. It was just magical. This is how I learned to write the curriculum, because Minnie showed me. She would reach out and touch their hand with her paw, and she was trying to show them that, yep, I'm happy being here. And I'm like, okay, let's give that space away, and we'll give Minnie more space and see if she's ready to come out. And she would be. And she would come up and she would lean on a student, and she would. And so these kids had to think, how do I help this being? How do I feel that empathy? How do I ground myself so I can be there for someone else? And I would just go home and frantically start writing pedagogy and curriculum and lesson ideas because of the exercises we were practicing with Minnie. There's so much in it. And most people have those people in their life that love you and don't get the anxiety. They don't really understand. They love you, but they don't understand. Yes. And others really get it, and they know how to show up for you because they've either experienced it or their family experience it. And both those people are wonderful in our lives. But having Minnie, she got it.
Yes.
and then the kids understood she got it, and it allowed them to be vulnerable and to, work through and to try to build this, this emotional, not fortitude, but just strength.
Yes, it's the opposite of what I sort of picture, because I picture the dog coming, and Minnie was a different example, and I want to hear all about the way that you're working with the children in the classrooms. But I wasn't picturing the dog being the one that was in need of the grounding and the emotional support. I'm picturing the dog bringing that and the children needing it. What a beautiful turn of events that meant the children could tune into what she needed. No doubt they just instinctively quiet and calmed themselves because they didn't want to have any sharp movements. They probably, and you said they lowered themselves to the ground. They calmed themselves to calm Minnie, and then saw the connection that would come from that.
And I think this is what Canine Comprehension does really well and has seen and allows their dogs to do. So we say to our staff, our mentors, your dogs aren't performing monkeys. They're not going in there to just do tricks and entertain the children so, they can feel happy that the dog's bowing or shaking or spinning.
Yes.
It's so that kids can have an authentic connection and really think about their role in that connection as well as the dog's role. And so we'll often do exercises where the kids will have to send a dog, and it will be like within week 3 or week 4 of the course that they're running, where they have to send a dog through an obstacle course. So the kids have to set up the obstacle course, they have to plan it, they already know the dogs, what they're good at, what they struggle with.
Yeah.
And then they have to go through the obstacle course, and a few things happens there. They have to look at what motivates the dog, and so what will also get the dog to listen while motivated. So food for some dogs can be a great motivator, but they've lost their mind on thinking about what they want to be doing. Get a lab, and they're just like, I've forgotten about the job, just give me that schmacko. So the kids have to sort of work out how do I become the teacher, and how do I think about this dog's learning process? And then when the dog is unsure, how do I encourage? How do I not put too much pressure on? What body language am I looking for? And so they are becoming the teacher in that response. And then when we unpack that after, we can say, well, what do you need when you're feeling overwhelmed? Or, you don't need to go through a lot of obstacle courses at school, kids, but you got to go through a lot of mental obstacle courses, and there's sometimes where it gets too much. And what can you do at that point? How can you help yourself? And so it allows the kids to think about it because they have already helped a dog get through it and get through that obstacle course. So yeah, there is those times, absolutely, Jodi, where most of our dogs just come in and they're happy, and especially when they know their job, they strut in. They're like,
Yeah.
I am the superstar. Come and pat me. Yes, everyone's here for me, and the kids love it. And
Yeah.
and it is, you get that reduce of anxiety in the kids straight away, and the lower cortisol levels and all of those sort of things. But it's in the exercises and it's in the working through a process with them that really teaches us more about our own learning and our own learning in relationship to our emotions, because we don't learn without our emotions. And sometimes they help us connect and really remember something. And sometimes they'll block it. I can't learn right now. My amygdala's flipped and I'm not in the state to learn, and we have to be able to recognize those places. And if kids can do that at a younger and younger age, it's only going to help them in the future.
It is so true. This idea that, it seems so ingrained that I say bad in talking marks, your negative emotions are ones that we, should get rid of, don't pay any attention to, we don't want them, get rid of them as soon as possible. And yet it is so freeing, it is so liberating, and it changes the way for you today, for example, you're not feeling great, you're not having a great day, and yet you recognize it, you know what it is, you've been here before, you have an acceptance around it, and it means that you don't feel like you need to just hide under the doona all day. You can do step 1, get out of bed, do step 2, have a glass of water. And for young people to be able to learn this, it is such a gift. I think anyone listening, if you're thinking what's one thing that you can do, is really normalise all emotions. And I wonder, Sarah, if you can talk to us more about how you and your team and your beautiful just want to call them, fairy friends. I know they're
fairy friends. We call them our workmates.
Your workmates, you and your four-legged colleagues.
My fairy workmates, yeah, exactly.
How can you help young people to really sort of connect more with what they're feeling and not be so frightened of the feelings that they really would rather not have?
I think, first of all, emotional literacy is really important. We need to know, we need to be able to name it. So, good, bad, and sad, we've got to go further. And it depends on the age of the kids, but all of our exercise books that we give to our schools when we work through a program has lists, and then we talk about reading the dog's body language and how the dog feels, and then the kids can act out different pictures. And we play this game, it's like a card game where we get the dog to lie down on the side, and then there's all these emotion cuts, right?
Yeah.
And we put one on top of the other, because what we want kids to understand is you very rarely feel one motion at a time. You could be sad and angry and frustrated and scared. And so we start layering those emotions. So it's not just, let's point to this one. This is the time I'm angry. This is the time I'm scared. It can go a lot more deeper than that. And so for kids to just get a taste of that complexity just when they're young, and then for us to explore that complexity as they get older, I think is really important. Also, we do a lot of mindfulness work. Each of our sessions make sure we have a mindfulness component. And for kids, I don't think it's a great idea to get them to try to sit down like a Buddhist monk and chant or even just work on their breathing. That can be very, very difficult for young people. But to be in that moment and to recognize what they're feeling. So if we're sitting down and we're feeling uncomfortable, let's just really think about, well, where is the uncomfort? Where do I feel uncomfort? Is it in my mind because I'm bored? Is it, my bum's getting sore from sitting on the floor? So being able to recognize when I feel yucky, or kids often will say they have a stomach ache, or they'll put an illness to it because a lot of the times they're listened to more when there was something physical.
Yeah.
But if they're feeling, well, where and what's actually going on there, for them to be curious about the difficult feelings and to be curious about the happy feelings. Where do you feel happy and where do you, that we normalize them? They're all just feelings. They don't have a positive energy or a negative. Well, they don't need to.
Yes.
They're just part of life, and we can work through them. And also, in a day, especially like the days of like the dogs that come in and they're really happy, and then they're a bit confused, so they get a bit shy, and then they're really happy again. That can be our day. So just because we start out one way, it doesn't mean, just because I started out dragging myself out of bed, doesn't mean that that's going to be the way I end the day today. So I'm just ready for whatever comes, and I'm trying to be observant and interested.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what a beautiful explanation. And anyone who would like to start to implement some of those ideas can do so. It's very easy to whip up a set of emotion cards with texture and paper and scissors at home, and just to start normalising it, like you say, and for us to cope out loud. And whilst you were speaking, I was thinking, what blend of emotions am I at the moment? And I think just the more conversations that we can have about this is, and the coping out loud is for us as adults around young people, within reason, like, obviously in age appropriate ways, to be able to say. And I said to my kids the other day, I said, I'm just feeling really teary at the moment. And yeah, just a few things like any other human walking this earth. There's always stuff going on. And I just said to the kids, I just feel really teary at the moment. I wasn't crying, but I just said, so if you notice that, I'm just going to take myself off. I'm going to throw the ball for our dog Dusty, our border collie, and have a cuddle, and then I'll probably get back to work. But if you just if you notice I'm not my normal self, that's why. And that's just my little way of kind of just normalising that, we don't feel good all the time. It's not normal. We have all sorts of ups and downs. One thing as a parent I find hard, though, is that my children have really embodied that. And so they don't put on a mask, they don't put on a happy face when things aren't great. And it's so painful, isn't it, watching someone you really care about who's struggling. I love that they're expressing how they feel. They don't need to cover it up, pretend things are different. But man, I just want to make it better. I don't.
It's an interesting space that we're in that way. I'm really I'm very interested in this spot, Jodi, that you talk about. I think teachers need a lot more support and a lot more training. We're hearing a lot of teachers say, the kids are just so emotional now. And it's like, well, the teachers are saying, the kids are just so volatile and they're so emotional and they're feeling everything now. And maybe, or maybe they're verbalizing it more and it's more on the surface. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think it is a different way to be managed, and it's a different support system they need in the classroom. Yeah. And we run a program called Friendship and Responsibility, which talks about, I think, kids where they are developmentally, it's all about them, and it should be, yes, at that age. But to be a good friend, you have to think about what you're giving, not as much as what you're taking. And so if you're seeing your friends are, having that they're showing their emotions, how do you be there for them? And as simple as something as saying, like, if you say, I'm feeling teary, and your child says back to you, that's okay, Mum. It's okay. We just accept it as it is. That's okay. Yeah. And it won't last forever, and then there'll be other things that come up. But, that's right. Just holding space, and it just needs to be done in a fleeting, gentle moment. It doesn't have to be a whole huge thing. Yeah. But acceptance, rather than us making the emotion have more power than it needs to have. Yes. If someone said to you, I'm very happy, you wouldn't go running around trying to make them less happy or try to understand their happiness, or, just be going, that's lovely for them, But when it's with sadness or when it's with uncertainty, you want to fix. And sometimes it's just about, well, let's just feel that and let's just see how it goes. And if it's still there tomorrow, absolutely. But a lot of our emotions don't have a long life. They really don't. We move in and out depending on how good our focus is. Yes. And we don't need to react to all of them. We don't need to be held captive by all of the emotions that are coming up all the time. We can
Yeah.
just watch them pass by.
That's right. So well said that they do pass. It's when we fight with them that we amplify them and they hang around longer. It's, it's so well said, Sarah. And coming back to your beautiful colleagues and the work that you do in schools, and I'd love for you to share with us more about, like there might be somebody listening who's going, yeah, this is making sense. Like I get it. I get dogs. I love dogs. I know how calming they can be and how lovely it is to be around them and how different it can be for a young person to have that opportunity to connect with a dog in a classroom and the difference that could make. Others might be, no, I'm not. I don't quite sort of,
Yes.
yeah. And so tell us more about, like, do you visit schools over a certain number of weeks and how in a class of, say, 20, dare I say 25, maybe more, how does that kind of work?
Yeah. So how's this set up? So we operate all around Victoria, and we're very lucky to have funding from the Department of Education through the Mental Health School Fund and through other funding bodies like School Focused Youth Service. So schools can apply for funding for our program. So it means they're not taking it solely out of their budget, which is a first tick for schools to understand. And we work with either programs or packages. So a program is where they choose 10 students that we work with once a week for 8 weeks. So we hang out with them once a week for 8 weeks throughout a term.
Yes.
And these kids are identified because they're either struggling with connection to their learning or to their peers, where they're facing anxiety or if there's home issues. We work with neurodiverse and neurotypical kids. So just those who need an extra helping hand. And those 10 kids our first lesson is on rights and responsibilities. So on the Bill Rogers concepts there, as well as the DET, Resilience, Rights and Respectful Relationship curriculum. And so they learn how to, the dog also has rights and the dog has responsibilities. It's a safe, ethical way to bring the dog in, but also saying that all of us have any relationship that we start, even talking to one another, there's a contract that's happening here, and we have to be able to understand what our rights are and how we respect our people's boundaries. So we start there, and then we've got different programs that schools can choose. So they sort of move off where communication inside and out is about how we talk to ourselves, so that inner speak, and how we talk to each other. So it's a lot about we'll do introductions with the dog where you'll call the dog and it'll be like, my dog's name's Gruffalo. So I'd call Gruffalo and I'd call it in a happy voice, and I'd show my happy body language and do a little happy dance when he comes near me and give him a pat. Or I'd then try being really closed off, like I talked about before, and closing my shoulders in and hunching my back and saying Gruffalo, Gruffalo, and he won't come. The dogs are taught through tonal conditioning, so they understand to ignore the negative tones and to only respond to the positive tones.
Right.
So the kids get to practice how to be open, and then they get the feedback straight away, and it seems to work so much better than role playing with other students, because when they do it in an open and friendly manner, the dog responds accordingly, and that just feels great. As you call over a dog and they come up and they're wagging their tail.
You feel very special.
I'm the chosen one. So we also have an activity that we do called Catch It, Check It, Change It with the kids, and it's about the kids trying to work out where the problem is, where their power is within the problem, and what they can do about it. So they might do it with an obstacle course or teaching the dog a trick. So we'll say, look, the dog doesn't know spin. Let's, over the next 3 weeks, let's work on teaching spin. And the dog won't have a clue what you're talking about. And so, okay, well, let's catch it. Let's catch the problem. Let's define the issue. What is going on here? What do we think is going on for the dog? How do you think he's feeling? How do you think you're feeling? So let's get it all down. And then let's check. Okay, well, maybe the dog doesn't understand what we're doing. It's not that he doesn't like you or he doesn't want to do it. So we check his knowledge. What can we do to change that? Okay, so we can start luring with food, or we can start getting him to follow something around, something like that. So they can work on activities with the dog, practicing the catch it, check it, change it. And then that's something that they can then use later on in class or in relationships with their friends. Or I'm not kidding. It sounds like I bumped into a kid in a supermarket once with his mum, and he's like, "Oh, this is Sarah. It was when I had
Oh,
Oscar and Minnie. So this was a while
yeah.
ago. Oh, Oscar and Minnie comes to our school, and they're the ones who taught us catch it, check it, change it." And his mother told me about how he used to be afraid of thunderstorms.
Yeah.
And he taught his mum about catch it, check it, change it. Well, I'm catching, yes, I'm afraid here at this thunderstorm.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it. Am I safe inside? Who do I need to tell? What can I do? Where does my power lie? And what can I do to change it? I can go and hang out with mum and dad. I can
Yeah.
listen to music. I can put headphones on. So they did a whole list. And it was
Oh,
just wonderful. Like that's all you want as a
oh
teacher
my
to go, oh my
gosh.
gosh, they remembered
Yes.
something and they applied it. That was just the best thing.
Oh, Sarah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. It is. It really is. And I can just picture the lifelong change for some of these students that, that's the thing about working with young people is sometimes you never know, bumping into them in the supermarket or an email maybe when they're an adult and they might look you up and come back to you. But you're doing extraordinary work and you're doing it in such a structured, meaningful, engaging and fun way for the kids. And that's not easy to do. It's not easy to do when you are working with young people, especially young people who have been selected because they need extra help. Hopefully, I wonder if there's listeners here who to this episode who've worked with you or have had children work with you that can DM one of us and let us know.
They can tell us. Yeah,
yes.
like next term alone, we're in 60 schools in Victoria. So we're really around the place. And
Yes.
I tell you our favourites though. We have a Tuesday night meeting with the staff, and we have this statement called "We have a crier," and what that means is that we'll be doing our work with our 10 students, and there's always a teacher observing or sometimes being involved.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of times where that teacher's sobbing in the back
Oh.
because we don't know the kids' stories, but that teacher deeply does, and the teacher will then later say, "I've never seen that child speak to other peers before," or "I've never seen them take the lead and offer to fill up the dog's water," or he's coming to school now and he never used to come to school, and those sort of things. And because we know a little bit about our students before we go in, but we don't know their whole stories. And so that's the real powerful and lovely stuff when the teachers tell us where they would been and now where they're going, and we're there for that every day of the week.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I think I've chosen the wrong career path now.
Come and join us. Come and join us.
Sarah, honestly, it has been such a gift today having you as a guest, and thank you for sharing, vulnerably about yourself and sharing with us, just a peek behind the curtain of some of what you do. I know that there's, so much work that you and your team are doing, and you've shared some of it with us today. That it's really wonderful the way you've shared it, because you've opened the door to some ways parents listening might be able to work with some emotional literacy and regulation with their own children, but also hopefully there are some teachers listening who are realising, hey, this is an amazing program that's out there, and how can people connect with you if they want to learn more about Canine Comprehension and how they can access the school's mental health menu here in Victoria and Australia, and get you guys into their schools and start working with some of their children.
Yeah, well, we love having conversations with interested schools or even interested parents, because they're great advocates to then go to their school and say, hey, I've heard about Canine Comprehension. So the first step would be to get onto our website. So it's canine, as in spell out the word, CANINE, comprehension.com.au. And you'll be able to see some of the videos and some of the fun that we do there, but also there's a contact opportunity for us to have a talk, because we want to make sure that our services are individual and they do reach exactly what the schools need. And I think that's what the DET, Department of Education, love about us, and that we will take that time to get it right. And so, we can look at booking in a program or even a package, which is a much longitudinal time frame.
Yes.
And we can also help you with finding that funding. So Mental Health School Fund menu is on the Department of Education, and all state schools should be able to find it. reach out to your school focus youth service coordinator. It will be in your region. If you have issues finding them, either contact us or just look up School Focus Youth, or come to us and have a chat and say, look, we still don't know where any funding is, and we can look for it as well. So, we want to be able to connect with those who really need us and keep those long relationships going. There's been some schools that we've been in for like 7 years now, and each term we give a mascot to schools, and the school is full of little dog toy mascots because we've been there for so long. So we have to start doing something else. But yeah, please just jump onto the website. We're on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can see what we're up to. But really, the website's got the information that you need, and don't feel shy in booking a meeting and just having an online chat.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I think you've really opened the door, and no doubt anyone listening sort of feels really comfortable now getting to know you a little bit, knowing really where you've come from in your own journey with your own mental health and the wonderful work that you're doing. Yeah, it's just incredible. So I thank you again so much for joining us on a tough day. That's such a gift to listeners, because some of our listeners are struggling like that. Really hard to get out of bed, hard to do what other people might view as sort of the fundamentals of the day, but that's what an anxiety disorder is. It impairs your ability to function, and you've shown that there's so much hope. No doubt the love of your beautiful furry friends makes a very, very big difference in your day as well.
Oh, they do. Look, I absolutely, if medication is what you need, and seeing psychologists, but also if there's a friendly dog that you can pat on your walk to work or grabbing a coffee, do that too, because they are absolutely wonderful to have around. Yeah, whether you own them or not.
That's it. Exactly. Well, Sarah, thank you again for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Jodi. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you for sharing this time with me on Well, Hello Anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control, and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week.